All right, we're live from Monday Night Football, talking some DFS, talking some player props. Yeah, we got $1 million up top. That is a one positive for DFS. It's not a shouldn't be super exciting slate. Both games projected to be low scoring, but what we'll do, we'll kind of recap where we are right now for injury news to some of these teams. We can talk through some strategy a little bit, answer some questions, talk some player props a bit if you guys have any questions there. And yeah, kind of go from there. So. First game here in New Orleans and Carolina. We just got this news. Kendre Miller is officially inactive. Pretty significant boost, in my opinion, to a guy like Jamal Williams. I expect him to have a similar workload to last week, and I expect him to be a bit more productive with that workload. I still don't think he's a super talented running back, but it's really just a workload thing plus a price point. Not super expensive. I'm expecting 75-ish% of the snaps like we saw in week 1. He is going to be involved in the passing game. He ran a lot of routes in week 1, even though he's not necessarily known to be a great pass catcher. It's just a fact that they don't have anyone else on this roster. Also, Kirk Merritt played a few snaps last week as a running back. He is also out. So it's literally just Jamal Williams and Tony Jones Jr. Not super worried about Tony Jones Jr. taking away snaps from Jamal Williams. I don't think Tony Jones Jr. is great. He only played 7 snaps last week, so Jamal Williams becomes a really good option. And then for Carolina, you got news that DJ Chark is in. This is kind of the worst case scenario. He's in, but he's been on some sort of a snap limit. We don't know exactly what that is. So kind of just a downgrade to the other Panthers receivers. Now, if you asking me what is the most likely scenario here, I think Terrence Marshall takes the biggest hit. If you take a look at the snaps last week for Carolina, they basically played 3 wide receivers most of the game. Thielen played 68 of the 77 snaps. Mingo played 67 of the 77. And Marshall played 69 of the 77. So all 3 basically played the entire game. And then you saw Laviska Shenault come in and play a little bit, 25 of the 77 snaps. So I think the most likely scenario here is Chark is going to be limited. I think he'll take away some from Marshall. I think he'll take a little away from Shenault. And maybe a few snaps away from guys like Thielen and Mingo. I think Thielen, Mingo probably the least affected. But that's just based on what I saw in the preseason and kind of how this team utilized their starters in the preseason as well. So that's what I think happens there. And I think the biggest news that we got recently is Amari Cooper might play. He basically got ruled out yesterday. No one was expecting him to play. Every site across the industry had him projected out. And now there's a chance he plays. I love situations like this when, you have questionable players in the late game. Because if a guy like Amari Cooper gets ruled in, especially if he gets ruled in after this game starts, he's going to be a lot lower owned than he would have been if we just got news that he was in like yesterday, right? So I think Cooper becomes a really interesting tournament play if we get news that he's in. Also, right now, it's important because Elijah Moore is projected for massive chalk. DPJ projected for a good amount of ownership. What happened? Like those guys would be, in my opinion, probably over-owned in a scenario if Cooper plays. So the Cooper news is huge. I think it's close to 50-50, but that was not news that I was expecting going into tonight. Right? It was from what I saw yesterday. It was pretty clear that he was not going to play, and now there's a decent chance I would say he does play. As far as Pittsburgh goes, we know Deontay Johnson's out. He also is on now in the IR, so he's out for another 4 weeks. I think it's relatively straightforward for what's going to happen here. Pickens, clear wide receiver 1. Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin as the other starters. We know Pittsburgh is a team that they don't really rotate guys either. So I'm expecting Pickens, Robinson out wide, Calvin Austin in the slot. And I think there's some interesting tournament plays at the wide receiver position. If you take a look at the chalk, again, just across the industry, the chalk kind of cheap wide receivers. Well, Elijah Moore is massive chalk. Rashid Shaheed picking up a lot of ownership. And Donovan Peoples-Jones picking up a fair amount of ownership. And I think those guys are decent options, especially obviously if Cooper is out. But there's some other guys that flying a little bit under the radar. I know, you're not going to get really excited about playing any Carolina guys. I'm not. But why is Adam Thielen a fifth of the ownership of Elijah Moore? Can someone explain that to me? I don't really know why. I think Thielen is their wide receiver 1, even though I think he's a little bit dusty at this point in his career. I don't understand why no one's playing Thielen and no one's playing Calvin Austin in the slot, who was very productive when he came in last week. So there's some interesting tournament plays here. Also some backup running backs as well. guys like Jalen Warren, even a guy like Jerome Ford. I talked about this a bit in my Patreon video, but Nick Chubb, we know is going to be like giga chalk, massive chalk. There's no spend ups on the slate, right? So everyone's going to play Nick Chubb. What is that going to do to a guy like Jerome Ford? No one's going to play him. Absolutely no one. 15 carries last week and basically split the snaps with Chubb. He still played a fair amount when the game was competitive, Ford. This is a Cleveland team that has shown like they won't use just one back. They like using two backs. I think it's probably a 70-30 split. I think a guy like Ford becomes a really interesting tournament play. Like he's projected for no ownership, negative ownership. Absolutely no one's playing Jerome Ford. Also, recency bias. The fish will just look at, he has 2 fancy points and completely avoid them. But I think he makes for a really interesting large field tournament play here. I think you can play him with Chubb together, kind of go with that Cleveland onslaught type build. But I think it's going to be, I don't think like Ford's going to be, splitting snaps with Nick Chubb like we saw last week. Again, I think that's kind of a game script thing where Cleveland was out of it at the end. But I do think it'll be about a 70-30 split. So that's another kind of interesting tournament play there. Quarterbacks, I think most of the field's going to look at Watson, Carr. Again, if you want my contrarian quarterback play, it's Kenny Pickett. What the casual players, the fish, do is they kind of look at what happened week 1 and just kind of assume it's going to happen again. And if you look at the Steelers offense in the preseason when Kenny Pickett was out there, I know it was preseason, but like they looked really good. They moved the ball right down the field in multiple games. Like the Steelers offense looked solid. Now, sure, no Deontay Johnson, and the Cleveland defense is solid. I don't get me wrong. I think the Cleveland defense is good. But again, it's like people see what Cleveland did to the Bengals week 1, and they're just going to assume they're going to lock down the Steelers, and they're going to assume the Steelers are so bad week 1 that's going to happen again. So I think Pickett will be very low owned because of those reasons. But he's somewhat mobile, and I think he's a really interesting tournament play at the quarterback position. Tight ends, there's not a ton here that I think I have any super strong takes on. I think Njoku, Freiermuth are your safest bets. Johnson is a solid option as well. He played a fair amount of snaps, Juwan Johnson. I'm just going to tell you this right now. If over-owned Taysom Hill falls into the end zone for the slappies that play him, dude, I'm going to be so incredibly pissed. Because Hill is a really bad play. Factoring in own, like, it's just a bad play in general, man. Like, Taysom Hill played 9 snaps. 9 snaps. It's just like, no. So, he's going to be over-owned, and most likely he's probably going to fall in the end zone. I'm going to be really upset. He's probably going to vulture TD from the Jamal Williams Sharks. So that will piss me off, I'm going to say. If Taysom Hill falls into the end zone, I'm going to be really upset. I'll mention a Darnell Washington, who did play a fair amount last week, but a little bit more than I thought he would. Now, I know Freiermuth got a little bit banged up, but still, he's a decent pass catcher. He ran 16 routes, but 24 snaps. Way off the board play. You can do it. But I think for me, it's probably not worth it to go to like take a shot on these backup tight ends. I think for me, where I'm looking to get different is the wide receiver position, or maybe in one of the running back slots, or even the quarterback slot. But I think it probably doesn't make sense for me to play one of these lower owned tight ends. And defense is always just one of those, like, I just hate talking about defense every single week, right? The chalk, we know what the chalk's going to be. It's going to be Browns and Saints, right? It's not very obvious that those are going to be the chalk defenses. All 4 defenses are in play. I'll say the Panthers probably my least favorite defense, but you never know. Playing at home, maybe. I mean, any defense can get a pick 6. We know that. So this is kind of the quick rundown of everything. Let's see. There's anything else I wanted to mention. I did upload a video talking about some player props that I like for tonight. I will say, just in general, not really looking at anything specific, but I think they still have some Browns props up here. Receiving props, I want to say. Do they? Yeah, they do. So, like, if Amari Cooper gets ruled in, guys like, because a lot of these props for Cleveland are up as if Amari Cooper was not playing. So I think it would make some sense to maybe look at some Cleveland unders. You could look at receiving lines. You could look at fantasy score for some of these, receiving targets if Cooper plays, right? Because, like I said, I'm not pointing out anyone specific, but I will say these lines are for as if Amari Cooper was not playing, right? Everyone thought Cooper was out. Every site projected. Now there's a chance Cooper plays. So I'll say, like, you could act on that if Cooper gets rolled in. You could possibly look to some receiving, some of these Browns receivers unders. If you want to look at fantasy score, if you want to look at receiving yards, that's any of that I'm totally fine with. What else? So we talked about Terrence Marshall, right? Again, the guy I'm the most confident for the Carolina receivers is Thielen. Already took his over 2.5 receptions. I think it's still there too. It is. I also like his fantasy score. I'm high on Thielen in general here. I think the prop market plus DFS industry is kind of just under projecting what I think will be his usage for tonight. I'm not super worried about what happened week 1. So yeah, that's kind of just general overview of some stuff. You could also, again, there's a lot of different ways you can go about, taking props. You can play game script things where again, there's so many different ways you can take. So let's just say, for example, okay, I think the Saints are going to get off to a big lead, and I think the Panthers are playing from behind. Well, what are some props you can look to in that scenario? You can look to Jamal Williams and his rushing attempts and take over, and you can look to Bryce Young and his passing attempts and take over, right? So there's some nice correlation you can find with that. It just depends on how you think the game goes. Same thing kind of with Pittsburgh and Cleveland, right? You think the Browns are going to dominate and get off an early lead, then just look to a guy like Nick Chubb and his rushing attempts. And you think the Steelers are going to be playing from behind like they were last week, look to a guy like Kenny Pickett and his pass attempts, who threw 46 times and they got off to a huge deficit early, right? It was 3 or 4 straight 3 and out. So there's a lot of nice correlation you can find here, depending on how you think the game goes. That's just a general tip. There's a lot of different ways you can do that too. You could look to yards and stuff like that, but that is a general tip for taking some player props. I've talked about this a lot. Live player prop betting there's a really, really big edge with that on Underdog. Been very successful with that this year, and I'm going to continue to do it. I'll be posting that stuff on Patreon if you guys are interested. Some live player prop stuff, as long as I think there's an edge. I'm not going to post if I don't think there's an edge. Like last night, I didn't post anything, but that Bills-Jets game, right? That was a pretty good example of really big edge when taking live player props. We were kind of unsure exactly how the Bills going to utilize their tight ends. We knew they were going to play a fair amount. We didn't know exactly how much. And basically through the first 2 snaps, Knox and Kincaid did not leave the field. So I went ahead and took their over receiving yards. It was 20 something. It was very low. Took the under in Breece Hall, rushing plus receiving. Obviously that was the one that missed, but I would do that again in a heartbeat. Week 2, he had 4 carries for 9 yards. That was it. So we got very unlucky with that being the only miss. And then it was kind of a game script thing, right? Jets were behind early. I took over on Garrett Wilson receptions, and then I took the under on Deontay Hardy rushing plus receiving yards, because even though they had a few catches early in that game, it was pretty clear that the Bills were not going to utilize him a ton because he played 4 of the first 20 snaps or something, where the 2 tight ends are basically not leaving the field. Those are just, again, you can, if you're really following along, you can, there's a pretty significant edge. I think a much bigger edge with live betting props as opposed to just full game props. All right, so let me check a couple things here and then we can answer some questions, guys. But I think it's a pretty good tournament slate for tonight. I'm excited for it. Again, the one we already got Kendre Miller news, right? We already got DJ Chark news. The one more piece that we are waiting for, and it's the big one, is Amari Cooper. So that is pretty important for tonight. And we already covered the implications of that, right? Right now, across the industry, Elijah Moore especially is massive chalk. DPJ projected for a fair amount of ownership. Njoku is a guy that, looks a little bit better if Cooper's out. Those guys would all look worse if Cooper gets ruled in. And then Amari Cooper himself, I think, would be a pretty interesting play because he would be lower owned than he should be. All right, so let's now get to some questions, guys. Leave them in the chat. Again, if you guys do enjoy these streams, just make sure to subscribe for more. Again, I'll be trying to do as many of these as I can. So let's get to some questions here. All right. Blackshear being inactive, change your status on Schubert Pop. His lines of sportsbooks reacted a lot to the other direction of the news. Blackshear? No. Did Blackshear? I don't think he played last week. Did he not? He did not play. No. So there's only 2 running. I was not expecting Blackshear to play. He did not play last week. So yeah, nothing changed there with my my Chuba under there. Then going with Bryce Young. Bryce Young, Thielen, Chark, Thomas, and Olave thoughts. Yeah, I mean, so Bryce Young is projected for the lowest ownership right now of all the quarterbacks. A double stack. The only thing with my worry with Chark is the limit, right? They said he's gonna be on some sort of limit, so I think everything else I'm fine with. I don't know if I'm double stacking. I think I would go Thielen and either like Mingo or Hurst probably. Because I don't know exactly what the Chark limit is, but I don't think I would go to him if he's on a limit. JV. Verlander? I mean, I was a Tigers fan, so he was on the Tigers for a while. I liked him. Thank you so much. DK Live, you're here. Thank you. Going on 5 years. Thank you so much for everything. DK, seriously, you're a huge part. DFS Life, great this. Hey, man, appreciate that. Thank you. Let's get a big W tonight, LeBron. DK Live is back. What's up, man? 2 questions. All right, let's say Bryce will be low owned. Yes. Bryce is projected right now for the lowest owned quarterback, but his floor is too low. No, I think you can play Bryce Young. He's going to be the lowest owned quarterback for sure. But you would think, they're probably going to be playing from behind. So I have no issue if you want to play Bryce Young. That's not the way that I'm personally going, but I'm not going to say no to Bryce Young in a 2-game slate. Like, it's not like there's no quarterback that's a must. Like, it's not like we have a slate where like Mahomes down here or Josh Allen. Like your top quarterback play is Deshaun Watson. So I'm fine if you want to go that route. If Cooper play, okay. Cooper plays again. DPJ, Elijah Moore, Njoku, basically just the pass catchers in general, and you don't even have to consider a wide receiver 3. My guess is that you probably get like Goodwin and Cedric Tillman mixing in as the wide receiver 3 if Cooper's out. If Cooper's in, you don't need to consider those guys. And then I think guys like DPJ and Elijah Moore would be overowned, and guys that I would probably look to get away from. Just because, again, like I said, the entire day, all the content out there, if you go watch any other piece of content, everyone's assuming Cooper's out. So one of those situations where Cooper would be lower owned than he should be, and those other receiving targets would be overowned. Let's see. If there's an edge, if I think there's an edge with Eli betting props, I will. Yeah. Taysom seems to find the end zone these slates. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm pre-tilting this. He played a few snaps last week. He'll probably get a couple carries. I'll be tilted if he finds the end zone because he's going to be overall, right? It's a game of ownership versus chances of success, and you're going to see people love to play Taysom Hill. They do. So like he's just going to be overowned for his chances of success. If Taysom Hill was like 1% owned, would be a little bit more inclined to play. I think. Well, let me see. What is he projected for? I can guarantee he'll probably come in more than what he's projected for. I think he's going to come in higher than what he's projected for. Just because again, people do like playing him. How do you feel about Warren and captain? For the showdown. I mean, he's a good pass catcher, and he basically splits snaps with Najee, so I'm not going to say no to that. And it does allow you to basically jam in those top guys. You like any Steelers props, like the wide receivers? Nothing that immediately stood out to me. I'm very high in the upside of. I love the upside in George Pickens. So he's someone they don't have. I'm surprised. I don't know do they only have receiving yards for Calvin Austin? Kind of wish they had. Yeah, they only have receiving yards. I wish they had like receptions. If they had like Calvin Austin, let's say like 2.5 receptions, then I would be very high in that because I think he's going to play he is going to play in the slot, and the Browns are most likely to be able to get pressure. So when you have defense like the Browns, that you're probably not going to have a lot of time to throw, like a guy like Pickett. So you're going to have to get the ball out quick. If you're getting the ball out quick, you're mainly looking to those quick routes, those slot wide receiver / tight ends. So Calvin Austin would be a guy that I would like to take his over receptions, but right now not up there. Any bets you like? I think I would take Saints. Let's see, what are they? Are they like -3 or something? Yeah, I think I like Saints -3. If I was going to bet on the game straight up at either of these games, I think Saints -3. I don't think his Panthers team is great. I think the Saints are about an average team or so this year. They're going to be better when Kamara's back, but I think if you look at the talent of the Saints team versus the talent of the Panthers team, I think the Saints are the much better team, even though they're playing on the road. Might to eat Nick Chubb chalk. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with eating Nick Chubb chalk. In my opinion, he should probably be around 90% owned or so in the Millie Maker. He's going to come in most like a little bit less than that. If you do fade Nick Chubb, I think there's a few different ways you have to go about this. I would set a rule like if you're fading Nick Chubb, you're either playing Jerome Ford, right? So you're fading Nick Chubb. Either you are thinking like Chubb gets banged up, or that it's Ford that falls into the end zone, not Nick Chubb. So like if you're fading Nick Chubb, I would either play Jerome Ford, or I'd be pretty heavy on the pass catchers where maybe something weird happens, like the Steelers get off to a pretty big lead. Let's say the Steelers get up by like 14, 21 points, and Cleveland has to abandon the run game. So yeah, if you're fading Chubb, I would do a couple things. I would either play Jerome Ford, or I'd be pretty heavy on the Cleveland pass catchers. And I'm saying you can fade Nick Chubb, because normally he's not super involved in the pass game. He did have 4 catches last week. I'd say a bit of an outlier. I still think they're going to utilize Jerome Ford kind of in the Kareem Hunt role, where it's like a 70-30 split in Ford, more of the pass catcher. So yeah, you actually can fade Nick Chubb. I'm not doing that tonight, but I think it's definitely on a small slate you can do it. And he's going to be very popular. Love the streams, DK. Thanks, man. Save for GBP, captain, Sanders or Thielen. Definitely Sanders, yeah. You need to enter exactly 20.94. Might Chubb free square tonight. Yeah, the way you fade him is you're thinking something weird happens. You're thinking something like the Steelers get off to a pretty big lead and they abandon the run game, or Chubb gets banged up. So it's either you fade Chubb, you play Ford, or you go very heavy in the Cleveland pass catchers. Prefer Sanders or Jamal in DFS. I think for me right now it's Jamal Williams over Miles Sanders, but it's relatively close. If Kendrick Miller was in, I think it would be a bit closer. But I'm a little bit more confident in Jamal Williams' workload. I don't think Tony Jones is going to take away much from him, whereas Chuba Hubbard probably gets 30% or so of the snaps. Picketing. That's where I'm going tonight. I'm playing Pickett, not because I'm super confident in Kenny Pickett. It's because I think he's going to be under-owned. And I think the field is kind of going to overreact to 1 week. So, and Pickett is somewhat mobile too. Any chance we know about Cooper before the first game? I would think so. I think inactives come out an hour and a half before the game. So this game's at 7:15 Central. So we probably get the news like 5:45. Frymouth or Njoku. Yeah, I don't have any super strong takes in the tight end position. If I had to pick, it would be Njoku, but I think it's really close. I think they're both good plays. Are you leaning Cooper gets rolled in? I think it's about 50-50. He feels. So I'm putting it about 50-50 he plays. Like the Saints, but I like the look ahead for the Panthers for Seahawks even more. Hawks only 4.5 right now, thanks to of course, in Seattle. Both the screens show same time. Okay. Let's see. Let me just do a little search, see if we got any more. I think it'll be like 5:45 we get Amari Cooper news. Okay, so someone, beat writer, or is this guy? Yeah, Browns beat writer said a few Browns players are out for some throws and jogging. No signs of Cooper yet. 30 minutes till active rosters are due. Yeah, so 5:45 Central is when we'll get that confirmation when Cooper is either active or inactive. But as of right now, again, only a few Browns are out there, so I'm not reading too much into that. But a few Browns out in the field, no sign of Cooper yet. It's not like the whole team's out there, though. All right. Where else we got? What other questions? Who is the next Steelers pass catcher you're confident in besides Pickens? For me, it's Calvin Austin. I prefer Calvin Austin to Allen Robinson. I think Robinson's kind of dusty at this point in his career. I just feel like he's still fine as a play today because he's going to play a majority of the game. But I actually like Austin playing out of the slot for the reasons we kind of talked about. And Austin came in and basically, like, the Steelers are not going to rotate guys. Like, they are like the Rams where they don't rotate receivers. If you take a look at the snaps last week for Pittsburgh, you can see that, right? Pickens played 56 of the 63 snaps. Calvin Austin played 35 of the 63. But again, Deontay Johnson played 27. So basically, once Johnson went down, Austin came in and like didn't leave the field. And then Robinson played 56 of the 63. So you're going to get Robinson, Pickens out wide, Austin in the slot. And yeah, I think they're going to run a majority of 3 wide receiver sets. So I actually prefer Austin to Robinson. I don't think either are super popular. We talked about, the ownership on Austin's not crazy. The ownership on Robinson is a little higher, but still not crazy. Again, more coming in around 50%. For me, at least, makes for an interesting fade, especially if Cooper plays. Even if Cooper misses, I think that's a little bit too high for Elijah Moore. So, yeah. We'll get that Cooper news in about 15 minutes. All right, what else we got here? Question-wise. Twitter search, yeah. Twitter search name, so I just Twitter search Amari Cooper, and that came up. You can also follow, I do follow some beat writers too, but that's a lot of how I just get news for preseason, for summer league stuff. It's just Twitter searching. Lots of Michael Thomas. Like them. Both Saints wide receivers. Again, the Saints passing attack is the passing attack I feel the best about here. Olave, Michael Thomas should play a majority of the game. I do think Shaheed's a very talented wide receiver. I also think he's be a little bit overowned, though, kind of like Elijah Moore. But yeah, I'm pretty high on both Thomas and Olave. That's not a strong take. They're going to be chalk for good reason. So yeah, I think factoring in salary, point per dollar, I think Thomas is a slightly better play than Olave. But I do think straight up, I would obviously rather have Olave. Again, though, salary really doesn't matter a ton. But I think you can leave a little bit of salary on the table on a site like this. Not a ton. I don't think you have to go crazy. But I do think you can leave some salary on the table in large field tournaments to try to avoid dupes. So that is definitely in play. Chark or Austin, definitely Austin for me. It's not close. I'm not really looking to Chark as a play because of the limit. Now, again, we don't know exactly what the limit is. So if we can find out what exactly that limit is for him, then we can go there. But basically, there's news that he's going to be somewhat limited. So yeah, that worries me with Chark. Because it could be a limit of he's playing 15 snaps. Could be a limit where he's playing 30 snaps. We kind of don't know. Where a guy like Austin, I'm pretty confident to play majority of the game in the slot and should get a healthy amount of targets based on what we talked about for a bit now. Assuming Cooper plays, who's your next favorite Browns pass catcher besides Cooper himself? Njoku. I think so. Yeah, I think I would look. Tight end is pretty weak, so I think Njoku. I'm not saying to fade more in Peoples-Jones. All I'm saying is, again, if Cooper gets rolled in, those guys will probably still be a little bit overowned. So first 3 receptions, I'm kind of stay away from me. Someone asked me about that earlier too. The issue with Hurst is he only played 41 of the 77 snaps, 30 routes. So not amazing, but still, again, that's a fair amount of routes. So yeah, he played about half the game. I feel way better, honestly, about Thielen over 2.5 receptions than I do Hurst over 3 receptions. Bad to play Jamal, Olave, and Thomas. No, it's a small slate, so a onslaught type build like that is certainly on the table. We have seen on small slates, onslaughts win GPPs. There's been a few occasions like last year in the playoffs. There was a couple of really gross games, and I want to say an Eagles onslaught won it with 5 or 6 players from the Eagles. So yeah, what is it? A Saints on stat? Yeah. So like the Saints offense is the offense I probably feel the best about on this slate. You could very much do something like this and hope that the other game is ugly and the Panthers can't move the ball. But you could definitely do a build, like that, like something like that. I know most people won't be willing to do it, but it's on the table on a slate like this. Just a full on Saints onslaught. Maybe you even play the Saints defense too. You're thinking Panthers get destroyed, can't move the ball, and you're thinking this Cleveland-Pittsburgh game is very ugly. So, yeah, like I kind of, on a small slate like this, a lot of stuff like that is on the table. Pickens or Thomas? Yeah, good questions. So, I think Michael Thomas is still safer. I like the matchup better for Michael Thomas. But let's see, ownership-wise, they're pretty similar. It depends on the rest of your build. I'll say that. I think Michael Thomas is a safer play. I think Pickens might have the higher ceiling. We haven't really seen a ton of games where Deontay Johnson's out, where Pickens is the wide receiver 1. They're coming in similar ownership. Michael Thomas projects a little bit better, and as I said, is a little bit safer. That's kind of a tough one. Are you looking to stack for single entry? Yeah, I mean, I'm not forcing it on a 2-game slate, but you can. Like, I'm not forcing like a 3-4 man stack. So when you have a game or games like this which project to be ugly, you don't have to like double, triple stack. You can. Again, we went over that. You can build that kind of onslaught, but I don't think you absolutely have to. Like, I'm fine on a small slate just single stacking, to be honest. Njoku, both if Cooper plays. So Njoku I like better if Cooper does not play. Even if Cooper plays, though, I still think Njoku's fine. Like, he's had some solid games. I think I have it up here. Like last year, they limited him early, so I don't put too much emphasis into this. But, 9 catches, 89 yards, a touchdown on 10 targets. 5 catches, 73 yards, and 7 targets. 6 catches on 6 targets, 88 yards. 3 catches on 6 targets, 58 yards. 7 catches on 7 targets, or 71 yards. 5 catches on 7 targets. 7 catches on 9 targets, 59 yards, and a touchdown. But like, he's had some pretty good games playing with Amari Cooper. So yeah, I still like Njoku. I would like him a little bit better though if Cooper does not play. Juwan Johnson over Hurst then. I mean, the tight end position is kind of tough for me. I don't have any super strong takes. Let me look at projected ownership. So Johnson coming in, projecting a little bit better than Hurst. Yeah, I don't think I have a lean there. They basically project identical too. So I guess if that ownership holds, I would slightly prefer Hurst to Johnson. But yeah, those two are pretty similar. Monta NBA thoughts. I think your Pacers. Oh man, I'm a Pistons fan. I like the Pacers because Sabonis. So basically, whatever team Sabonis is on, I like. So, but I mean, it's only really like 2 weeks until preseason. Preseason NBA, the first game is October 4th, I believe. So we are 2 weeks away from NBA DFS. Cooper on the field warming up, housing his hamstring, looks okay in the videos. Okay, so we got 10 minutes until out warm ups, tape, wearing receiver gloves. Looks like he's giving it a go. Looks like he is going to play, but we'll wait on the confirmation when we do get actives and inactives. Yeah, beat writer says Cooper is in line with the other receivers. This does not appear to be an injured player doing a closely observed workout, which we sometimes see. Okay, so again, if you want to look to some of those Browns receivers unders, I don't think that's the worst idea because again, a lot of those lines were set as if Cooper was out. And we just got confirmation from Ian Rappaport. He's in. Tweaked his groin this week. Was questionable. Will be active tonight. So Cooper is in. One vote for best ball thoughts. I mean, I can maybe do a stream, like a high stakes stream, like I did previous years. We kind of covered it already. I uploaded a video of some props I like. I took Thielen over 2.5 receptions, Jamal Williams over 1.5 receptions, and Chuba Hubbard under, I think it was like 48.5. I want to say rushing plus receiving. I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper, probably take a few more here, but we kind of went over some correlation that you can do depending on how you think the game goes. With, like, for example, if you think the Saints dominate the Panthers or get off to a pretty big lead, you can take like Jamal Williams over rushing attempts with like Bryce Young over passing attempts or something like that. Best starter for the first showdown. What do you mean best starter? I mean Olave, I guess. Yeah, Rapport is in. He's in. Yep. Yeah, a Cooper active. So I want to see what that does to the ownership on Moore and DPJ. I'm curious. I'm very curious what happens with the ownership there. Probably won't get updates from sites for a little bit, but I'm very curious to see what that's going to do. I'm very curious where the ownership's going to land on Cooper himself, right? Because if you just go on YouTube and watch any content today, literally everyone was assuming Cooper was out, right? So I think he's going to be under owned, and I think he's going to make for a pretty good tournament play. Oh, best captain. I mean, depends what you quantify as like best. I think your safest captain probably like Derek Carr. I think ceiling wise, I like Olave, Michael Thomas, Jamal Williams. And then if you want the kind of off the board captain, I would say Adam Thielen. So that's always a tough question when people ask me like, what's like the best? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, do you mean the most optimal? Do you mean, lowest, like a low own, like a sneaky play? Like I never really know how to answer that. Who's going to be the player you ran about tomorrow? Probably Taysom Hill falling into the end zone. Like I'm probably going to be pretty upset if he does. Because he's just going to be people are going to want to play Taysom Hill. They're going to play him. He's going to be over owned versus his chance of success. If you see like 5 snaps again from Taysom Hill, I'll probably be 5 to 10% owned, and if he falls in the end zone, like I said, I'm going to be pretty upset about that. All right, guys, we'll call it there. So we streamed for about 40 minutes. Appreciate you guys for watching as always. We hit like 120, I think, concurrent viewers. Not bad for Monday Night Football. Try to do more of these in the future, but yeah, good luck tonight, guys, and we'll see y'all in the next one.